Hello, my name is Isabel Logan, and today I'm going to be talking about preparing for your digital accessibility deadlines in 2026. And just a quick note before we begin, um, this presentation is going to deal with legal matters, and we are not legal experts. This is just our interpretation and understanding of the law based off our knowledge in digital accessibility. So please don't take this as legal advice. Perfect. So I'm going to start off with talking about some of the technical requirements that these deadlines have. Then I'll go into what the deadlines are, and then I'll talk about developing a roadmap to compliance. So to start off, you're going to hear this term a lot, WCAG, and that's going to be our web content accessibility guidelines. These are a list of success criteria that ensures that web products are accessible. They were developed by W3C and they're a globally recognized list of accessibility standards. They currently have three published versions of WCAG. That's going to be 2.0, 2.1, and 2.2. Within each version, there are three conformance levels. So we have single A, double A, and triple A, with A, a single A being the lowest level of accessibility and triple A being the most. So, it's important to note that each version is going to add success criteria that aren't present in other versions, but they're designed to be backwards compatible. So if you're conformant to 2 point, WCAG 2.2 AA, you're also going to be conformant with WCAG 2.1 AA. So the list of success criteria are going to be based off of something we call the POUR principles, which stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So first let's talk about perceivable. This is going to be that information and user interface components are presented to users in ways that they can perceive. So an example of this would be having text alternatives for meaningful images. The second principle is going to be operable. This means that user interface components and navigation are operable to all users. An example of this principle would be making sure that all website functionality is operable to keyboard alone. The third principle is going to be understandable. So information, the operation of user interface must be understandable. An example of this would be making sure that your page's default human language can be determined programmatically. And then our fourth principle is going to be robust. So content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted by a wide variety of user agents, including those using assistive technology. An example of this is going to be making sure that each component on your website has the correct programmatically determined role. So next we're going to talk about the upcoming compliance deadlines within the United States this year. To start off, the one that you probably have heard of the most is going to be that ADA Title II deadline. So in April 2024, the Department of Justice released a ruling on ADA Title II, setting a technical standard for digital accessibility for public entities. When I talk about public entities, I'm talking about public education, public transportation, um, court services, voting services, healthcare, and anything else that the government runs. The deadline for this compliance is going to be based off the total population the public entity is serving, and in most cases, this is determined by census population. So public entities that have a total population of 50,000 people or more are going to have the deadline of April 24th, 2026, while public entities with less than that and special district governments are going to have that deadline in April of 2027. So this ruling has made the technical standard that public entities need to meet be the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 AA. So some states, in addition to this deadline, have further deadlines out. So they still need to meet this ADA Title II deadline with additional requirements within the future. One of those states are going to be Washington State. They require that technology that entities present to users need to conform with WCAG 2.2 AA by July 1st, 2026. And this is going to be established by Washington state policy called user-01. It's important to note with both this and ADA Title II, they cover websites, mobile applications, social media posts, conventional electronic documents, and digital products are owned by the public entity. But it is important to note two key differences is that the ADA Title II, you need to meet WCAG 2.1 AA standards for anything owned by that public entity, while the Washington State 2.2 AA standard only is applicable to information that the state presents to users, so more public information on the state that the state provides. And then the next state we're going to talk about is technically not in 2026, but it's close enough, so we'll still talk about it. It's New York State. They have a new law that requires that newly launched state agency websites and state agency websites that are undergoing changes to form and function need to conform with WCAG 2.2 AA by January 1st, 2027. So this is going to include any website that are made by a third party on behalf of a state agency. And this is going to be established by a New York state policy called NYS-P08-005. And again, it's important to note that New York State only focuses on state agency websites meeting the WCAG 2.2 AA compliance deadline, while Washington and the ADA Title II standards are going to focus on websites, applications, documents, and social media content. And if you want more information about ADA Title II and its exceptions, please check out our previous webinar, Beginning Digital Accessibility for Local and State Governments. Nice. So now I'm going to move on to developing a framework and the immediate steps I would take if I'm in the position where I need to get compliant by these deadlines. So first, I would research deadlines and the compliance requirements for those. Every state, country, province, everywhere is going to have different deadlines and different requirements. So become familiar with what affects you the most. Next, I would communicate compliance standards between public entities and third parties, learn about who's responsible for which area of compliance, and then also make sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to deadlines and what deadlines affect them. I would also create internal awareness about the compliance deadlines. Government entities are usually very large and very complex, and it can be hard to make change. So by having internal awareness, you can make sure that everyone's on board about meeting these deadlines. Next, I'd create an inventory of all of your products that need to be made accessible. And this is also going to be a great time to learn about exceptions to specific compliance laws. Maybe one of the most important parts of the process is going to be getting an accessibility audit and a VPAT done for your current content. So, an accessibility audit is going to usually comprise of both automated scanning and then manual auditing. Automated scanning is great for finding some initial errors, but only finds around 30% of the conformance errors, while manual auditing can find way more. So, it's important to get both done. We're going to go through and look at the different success criterias listed in WCAG and just report the findings on how it conforms to each one. A VPAT is going to be an accessibility conformance report. It's going to list WCAG success criteria and your product's conformance to each one. Okay, now I've also, like, once you have that done, you should use that information to remediate success criteria failures within the accessibility audit. So make those changes so you're compliant by your deadline. And a important part of the process that gets overlooked is performing user testing with native assistive technology users. Just because something meets the WCAG success criteria doesn't mean it's an accessible, good experience for the people who need that technology. So by using native users who are going to use this every day or going to use your product, it's really important to get that feedback so you can make the best experience possible. So once these deadlines have passed, it's really important to have continued compliance. Just because you're compliant at one point in time doesn't mean you're going to be compliant every single day into the future. So here's just some quick, easy steps I would take to be work on continued compliance. First, I would provide employees with digital accessibility training, really foster an environment of caring about accessibility. Next, I would create a cycle of receiving accessibility audits and performing remediations. It's really important to do this just because, again, if your product is accessible at one point in time, doesn't mean that new content is going to be made accessible. It's really important that you receive that manual audit and a VPAT on an ongoing basis. We recommend once a year at least, just to show ongoing compliance. I would also add procedures to incorporate accessibility into your design process. It's way easier to make something accessible from the beginning versus going in at the very end and changing things around to make it accessible. So always design with accessibility in mind. Next, I would make sure that all your third-party vendors are on the same page when it comes to digital accessibility as you. It's a really good time to make sure that third parties have VPATs and are actively working towards compliance. And if they aren't, it's a good time to have a conversation and explore those potential other options. And then finally, keep up to date with potential new accessibility laws that may affect you. The law is always changing, new deadlines are appearing, new technical standards are coming out. So make sure that you know what you need to be compliant with. So, how can Accessible Web help you? We have web accessibility software. This contains tools that will automate and facilitate continuous compliance and with different updated accessibility standards. And this is we already shared the coupon code for this that we have. The next one that we have is going to be accessibility audits. So we can perform these comprehensive evaluations of web and mobile applications to identify your compliance gaps with WCAG 2.2 Level A. We also offer consulting and training. So we have expert guidance on training sessions on how to implement and maintain accessibility standards. And then we also can make those voluntary product accessibility templates, those VPATs, so we
Yeah,
can make the document showing your
perfect.
failures. Oh,
Thank you, Isabella. No, that was awesome.